First, if time allows, I also will take questions of associate members later. Please, can I call you, please come to the microphone and introduce yourself by name and affiliation, and keep yourself to one question. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Tim Wuniak with IDG News Service. I'd like to know what is your vision for Google's Android Auto system for Nissan and Renault, and how is it going to help the user experience in cars of the future?
I think today every experimentation about autonomous driving or self-driven cars is very interesting for car makers. I think most of the car makers working with Google, they are very open about this collaboration, and I think the car industry is benefiting a lot from some of the breakthrough, the opening that Google is doing. But at the end of the day, I think all car makers are extremely cautious about maintaining the control on their own cars. So I think this is a kind of very cautious collaboration, but at the same time, everybody wants really to maintain its own control on its products. I suppose that Google is more interested into apps and everything which goes into the car, and the car maker wants to keep the control on its own system. We obviously don't want to become just a kind of simple common hardware. We really want to keep the attractiveness of the product and the control on the product. And I think it's a point which is common to all car makers. So you're going to see a lot of collaboration, but at the same time, everyone is going to go his own way. And some people are more driven towards self-driven cars, other to autonomous systems, and it's going to happen in a completely different way. But the potential is huge. If we take just, without mentioning the young people, if we take the senior population, which is one which is going to have the biggest evolution in the years to come. I've read the statistics saying that a baby born today has 50% probability to live more than 100 years. So you can imagine the transformation that this is going to be leading for the next years. So if a baby born today has 50% probability to live more than 100 years, and when you see that on average people lose their driver license in the condition today sometime around 80, well, it means that you're going to have to live 20 years if technology doesn't change, which obviously is not to be considered. I think technology is going to change, but everything which is going towards autonomous driving is going to help gain this population and maintain this population mobile for a much longer time, independently of the weaknesses that we may have when we get older.
Thank you. Just a short question. What is your favorite exchange rate in the market?
Exchange rate?
Yes, because we heard that.
Look, I've been very consistent. I've said that 100 yen to the dollar is neutral. I've been consistent. And what this was when the yen was at 75. We said what we want. We don't want an advantage. We don't want a handicap. I think we are big boys to be able to compete by ourselves. We don't want to be successful because of the exchange rate, but we don't want a handicap because of exchange rate. And I think back in the year 2008 already, I said 100 yen is the neutral area, when we are in neutral area. And frankly, I cannot complain. We have been navigating for a while between 100 and 102. Perfect. I don't think, we don't need the yen to go to 110 or 120, we don't need to go to 80. We just want the yen in a neutral position to allow us to do our job. So I would say I'm happy because it's neutral. It is neutral. Because when it gets too weak, it gives an advantage to a specific part of the industry. When it gets too strong, it's another part. What we want is a neutral position.
Iris Media Al Adil from Lebanon. My question might be out of subject. Do you intend to go to politics? Because since more than 2 months, we don't have president in Lebanon, and many are talking and mentioning your name to solve the problem of Lebanon.
I'm being accused of accumulating too many jobs already. So, unfortunately, I don't think this is part of the probabilities. I think I have a job to do as a head of 2 large companies today, Renault and Nissan. As you know, I've been renewed for another 4 years mandate by the shareholder meeting of Renault that took place in May. So there are a lot of things to be done in the world, but I think where I can bring my contribution today is where I'm staying.
Joël Lejean, RTL France, Building Together. It's very hard to ask you a question after that because you don't want to get into politics, but nevertheless, I'd like some clarification about your strategy.
Yeah.
Are you to boost profit margin or over the market share or not? I'd like to understand that.
Yeah.
And why do I ask you that? I and many others have always felt that Nissan strategy and strength, once you're global alliance with Renault, as you just mentioned, and that's for the world market. So I'd like to understand exactly what is going to be your strategy, including emerging markets. And also, in this regard, I'd like to ask you about the problems encountered precisely in your global platform strategy, for example, targets, timelines with Renault. And eventually, if I could, any comment on the press talks about your salary?
Look, we have a plan, it's very simple, Power 88. We have 2 objectives, 8% operating margin, 8% global market share. So I don't think it's profit or growth, it's both. It's growth to sustain profit, and it's profit to allow growth. Because profitability allows growth, allows you to make the investments in technology, allows you to make investments in product, allows you to go all over the world and have your own presence. I think Nissan is the company which has the most aggressively expanded for the last 5 years, not only in China, but building a new plant in India, building new plant in Russia, and making an alliance with Avtovaz, which is a partner of Renault, building a new plant in Brazil, building probably the most extensive manufacturing capacity in Mexico for North America, building a new plant in Indonesia, now building beginning of CKD operation in Myanmar, in Nigeria. So Nissan is going everywhere where we feel there is an emerging market, we're going to be there. Because we think that emerging markets are going to represent the majority of this industry. And if we want to go for leadership, well, the leadership has to be gained first on the emerging markets. Because closing the gap in existing mature market is going to take a long time. You can go much faster by positioning yourself as leader in the emerging market. Which, by the way, we are. In China, we are the #1 Japanese brand. In China. Okay? We aim, and we said clearly, to become the #1 Japanese brand in Russia. We're not far from it. We are aiming to become the #1 Japanese brand in Europe. And we're going also to be the #1 Japanese brand in South America, and particularly in Brazil. We said it. Okay? And we're building it. We're closing the gap in the United States with our Japanese competitors. And we said clearly also we want to become the 2nd brand in Japan, which we are not today. We are fighting for 2nd position for many other car makers. So growth is part of the strategy of Nissan, it's part of the potential for it. But growth without profit will not last. Because if you don't have the profit, you don't have the money. You don't generate enough cash to be able to invest in technology, invest in product, invest in new plants, to be able to be in all those. So there is no contradiction. But from time to time, it's true that when you're growing too fast, well, it may represent a risk on your short-term profitability. Okay? That's true. But what we need to consider, what our shareholders want to consider, is the long-term trend. That's what is important. The long-term trend, this is when you look at the long-term trend, you see what the company is doing. If you take Nissan in 1999, Nissan in 2005, Nissan in 2014, you understand what's going on. In 1999, obviously the picture is relatively simple. 2.4 million cars sold, 5.2 million last year. 2 trillion yen of debt, 1 trillion yen of cash. The number of in country where we had a geographical industrial presence in 99 compared to today, we more than doubled. So if you take all these elements, the number of products, the number of cars sold per product invested, etc., you see the transformation that took place. We want to go for another one, but the one that we are building is in cooperation with Renault, with one side in the alliance, but also in cooperation with Daimler, and in cooperation with Mitsubishi, and with cooperation with Ashok Leyland in India, etc. And frankly, today it's a strength, because we are the only company today who is successful with alliances and productive with alliances. I mean, it's not only just having a pose and shaking hands and making a statement. It's about how many common projects you're having, how many exchange in powertrain, how many exchange in platforms, how many cars you're doing in common, how many things you're doing together. And I think today the alliance, Renault-Nissan, is a world champion in terms of cooperation. Not only of number of cooperation, but also in number of projects coming out of cooperation. So not only between themselves, Renault-Nissan, but also if you consider Daimler. I mean, the number of projects we have been able to develop with Daimler in 3 years is spectacular. I mean, no matter how you look at it, and you compare it to the past of the industry or the presence of the industry, this is something which is worth noting. What we've been doing with Mitsubishi also, which is growing. So this kind of strategy, which is unique, because it's based on alliance and cooperation from one side, on a strategy, global strategy, going mainly on emerging market first, but at the same time reducing the gap with the leaders in mature market, betting on technology, on product, on innovation. Well, I think hopefully it's going to deliver a lot of, it's already delivering results, but it will deliver a lot of results. So that's what I want to tell you. And this alliance is strong because of the commonality it develops. Common platform is very important because it drives the level of investments per car, drives it down, and at the same time it allows you to be extremely cost competitive because we are in an industry of scale. The big change in the car industry is that today the largest player are the most competitive. Well, we had a time where the largest player were not the most competitive. When today, the largest player are the most competitive. So when we're talking about the room open for small players, it's going to be much, much more difficult today. Because when you're going to have to fight companies which are selling 8 million, 9 million, 10 million cars, which have from the low cost to the premium, sports car, 4x4, crossovers, light commercial vehicle, etc., you're going to have to come with something extraordinarily different and extraordinarily more attractive to be able to gain. And we don't see it. For the moment, we don't see it. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Everything can happen in our industry. But I think for the moment, I bet you that the big, large car companies are going to continue to be bigger and more profitable and more dominant. That's the trend that we are seeing. Yeah, yeah. About my salary, what's the question? I mean, I mentioned that every single time I go to the shareholder, I start by answering the question about my compensation, and and this year was not an exception. And then after this, we go to serious issues. But it becomes some kind of ritual. You can't have to come to say this is my compensation, and that's the way it has been calculated, and these are the references. Just to answer again, I say, we follow, as you know, Powers Watson systematic analysis of compensation. People look at this but say, yeah, but in Japan, you're the highest salary in Japan. Yes, it's true. At the same time, Nissan, it cannot be considered only as a Japanese company. it is a company based in Japan but on a global trend. And we are in search for global talent. It happens that last week we lost one of our global talent. So we had to announce the fact that the head of Infinity business unit left us to go to Cadillac. Okay, this is one example, and we have many that are not so much in the news. There is a fight for global talent, and for fight of global talent, money should not be a handicap. It should be an asset. That's it. That's the way it is. And I think I have absolutely no discretion on it. I'm saying it to the shareholder. I say, well, we're doing what we think is right, and we're doing it in a way to take in consideration not only the efficiency of the company, but also take in consideration the local environment. In Japan, we have to take in consideration Japanese sensitivity. In France, you have to take in consideration French sensitivity. In other countries, you have to take in consideration, but at the same time, you have to be competitive. I mean, you cannot just say, well, I'm sorry, I need this expert, but I cannot pay him. When you are sitting on 1 trillion yen of cash and making $6 or $7 billion of profit, not making sure that you want this talent, you can get him no matter what, well, I think it's a sign of vigor and a sign of competitiveness. Now, this has to be done in a way which is not provocative, where you're not hurting sensitivity. So it's a kind of fine line. But I'm predicting that what the Japanese press called professional management is going to increase in Japan. You're going to see more and more individuals with global expertise that with established performance are going to be hunted by companies who are in trouble and want leaders to transform their own company. Because these people are not so many. And when you have established this track record, well, people are looking for it. And it's not. It's part of the economy, and it's about a part of competition.
Good morning. I'm NHK News reporter. Help us understand why it is important to have women in leadership roles in all companies. And please give us an example at Nissan where there was a benefit in having women as leaders.
Yeah, well, I mean, frankly, I cannot tell you about other companies. I'm talking about Nissan. But what I can tell you is I totally understand and support Japanese government effort to promote more women in society. Obviously, Japanese government has a lot of very objective reasons to do that. There is a demographic decline in Japan, which requires that Japan needs all its human resources. And today, the biggest potential existing in Japan is women. More role for women in the economy, more role for women in management. So I totally support it. Now, I'm not going to talk about other companies because that's not my job. I can tell you about Nissan. I think when 60%, I'm going to give you some very specific example, but when 60% of your car buyers globally are women, and when you know through systematic surveys that what women are looking for in general, what women are looking for in a car is very different for what men are looking for in a car. And when women tell you, for example, and this is across the board independently of nationality, a woman going to a dealer, 80% of women going to the dealer prefer to be attended by a woman. 80%. 20% don't care. Or let's say it's okay, that's fine. 80% want to. When you ask the question to men, well, 50% of men says, I prefer a woman, 50% says, I prefer men. Okay? So, women want 80% of women, men want 50% of women. So you say, oh, logically, you should have plenty of women in the sales force, in the dealers. But not at all. Not at all. So the first reaction, very specific, you say, okay, my customers want more women, so I need to have at least 50% of my sales force attending customers in the dealership are women. Well, we're not. We're barely at 15%, and I can tell you we have been investing and hiring and training very quickly. This is a very simple example of why we need more women, because customers want it. When women look at cars, and again, I'm talking statistics here, I'm not talking about specific. They look at attributes that usually men do not pay too much attention on. They look about position in the car. they look at quality of the materials in the car, they look about safety, they look about ranging, functionality inside the car. They don't look too much about power and transmission and displacement. So they have very specific look at the car. So if all the people deciding on the car are men, these things that are were considered as details, you lose attention on them. So if the decision is made on these features and you're not paying attention to this feature, you end up having a customer base which is mainly male, which we used to have. By paying attention to this and introducing much more attention, and who's going to pay attention to this? Female designer, female marketer, female engineers. They're going to pay a lot of attention by saying, hey, we don't have enough ranging, the position of the seat is not good, quality of the material is not good, color is not sufficiently attractive. By just putting women into decision making on the product, it's not anymore an option. It is mandatory to make sure that the car is going to come with attributes that pleasing women. So these are two examples, I think, where we can demonstrate on specific items why women in management are important.
How do you predict mainstream of green car or clean car during coming 10 years? How do you predict mainstream of green car?
Of green cars?
Green cars.
Okay.
Green car. And also, how do you challenge fuel cell vehicle, SUV?
Yeah. How do I see green cars? Well, obviously, I'm not going to create a scoop by telling you something different than electric, obviously. So I see more and more electric cars, and I think the main market for electric cars are going to be the United States and China, without any doubt. China is moving very fast and decisively. By the way, in July, we are starting to produce a Leaf under the Venusia brand in China. We're assembling it in China. And you're going to have more and more local production of electric cars in China, and I think the Chinese government is preparing for a massive development of electric cars in China. I think the United States is going fast also. The main limit in the United States is infrastructure. Japan, with the establishment of infrastructure, also is moving fast. You have some European countries moving also fast, like Norway, like France. So, I mean, obviously you're going to have a place for hybrid, you're going to have a place for electric, you will have a place for fuel cells. We have prototype fuel cells. We are working on fuel cell with Daimler and with Ford. We established common entity to develop fuel cells to make sure that we have scale between the three companies for fuel cell. And great cars, great technology, fuel cell. But fuel cell is going to hurt the same problem than electric cars. Where is the infrastructure? And the infrastructure for fuel cell is much heavier than infrastructure for electric cars. Charging systems are very familiar. You can have a slow charging system, you can have a fast charging system. They're not very expensive, they are familiar, and they are being spread. Developing a hydrogen infrastructure is a challenge. That's the only thing that, in my opinion, is going to probably postpone the development of fuel cell cars. Technology is very good. We have this technology. We're just a little bit skeptical about the speed at which fuel cell cars will come to the market. Now, selling 500 or 1,000 cars, that's not the issue. I mean, we're talking about mass marketing here. We're talking about selling 100,000 cars a year, 200,000 cars a year, and here you're going to need a much more serious infrastructure. But again, I think this is a great technology. It has future. But the main question is, how are you going to build the who's going to build the infrastructure? Because it's an expensive one. And how fast the infrastructure is going to develop. At the same moment, the government are more concentrated into developing infrastructure for electric cars. It's not the only solution for zero emission. But again, technology promising. It has a lot of advantages, but also it also has some handicaps.
I'm Martin Fritz, working for Wirtschaftswoche, a German business magazine. Could you say something about the relationship between Nissan and Renault? I know you have to speak with two voices. But one view from Japan is that Nissan is having the monozukuri and the technologies and innovation, and the French side has the freedom to work less. So Renault is benefiting a lot from Nissan. What would you say to this view?
No, there is a lot of, it's true that there is a lot of caricature about, how the two companies work together. And I don't think that you have one strength from one side and one weakness from the other side. The two companies are contributing together, and Renault has a lot of successes, both in engineering and monozukuri, and they are not successes compared to Nissan, they are successes in terms of the total industry. And I'm going to give you one example. The Dacia brand of Renault in Europe is the most successful, have been the most successful and the most progressing brand in Europe. Practically no competition. And what is Dacia? Dacia is one platform that Renault built, which is the M0 platform, which is based on a monozukuri system based in Romania with the Vitesti plant. It's a product, it's a plant, it's a supplier system and a distribution system, completely built by Renault, which is today selling more than 1 million cars, not only in Europe, globally, and it's unique. So when people tell me, yeah, you know what, Renault has a monozukuri which is not strong, I'm saying, I'm sorry, no. There is a world best practice established by Renault itself, and which is proving that, it's very well thought, very well executed. So, and my point here is not pinpointing one company versus to the other. I think what is important is Nissan has strengths, Renault has strengths. Fortunately for us, they are not the same. Fortunately for us. And they are not the same. So we are learning from each other and we are exchanging with each other. The success of Nissan in Europe is based on Renault because all the diesel engine equipping, and you know that diesel represents more than 70% of the market in Europe, all the diesel engine equipping the Nissan cars in Europe are Renault engines. All of them. And Nissan is about to become the leading brand, Japanese brand in Europe. So this is where you see that Renault is bringing a very important push for Nissan success in Europe. Russia. Renault established a first step by taking 25% of Avtovaz. Then the Russian government decided that it would allow the alliance to take majority in Avtovaz, which allowed Nissan to move into Avtovaz by taking a minority stake. By doing this, Renault allowed Nissan to come to Russia in much bigger number, with much more. So what I want to say is it's a win-win. And I can give you an example on the other side, China. Renault is moving to China now. Renault is copycatting the plans of Nissan to move much faster, using the same platform than Nissan. So I can tell you that the takeoff of Renault in China will be very fast, thanks to Nissan. It's because we are more not looking at each other as competitors. He has this, I have that, he has the weakness, he has the strengths. We're just partners. It's like a soccer team. You cannot say I run more than my partner in the team. We're a team. We win together, we lose together. From time to time, when one has a weakness, the other one covers. And then the other one has a weakness, one covers. And it's working very well. It has been working for 15 years.
Eric Tanner from the Wall Street Journal. You mentioned Mr. Denishin, could you give us a bit of an update on where the search for his successor stands and what the plans will be, what the priorities are in the search?
No, I think there is no change in our strategy. I think the results of Infiniti speak by themselves. The brand is improving a lot. We have a lot of technology and cars coming to the pipeline. Strategy has been aligned. We have a team based in Hong Kong. But these things, it's happened. In the car industry, there is a fight for talent. And it's a global fight for talent. 49%, I think, of the top executive of Nissan, the 100 top job of Nissan, are made of 13 different citizenships. 13. Because when I say 49% of the top executive of Nissan are foreigners, people say they're all French. No, not at all. The number one is British, then you have French, we have Spanish, we have South African, we have Brazilians, we have Chinese, and that's the strength of Nissan, is to be at the same time very Japanese, but very global also by having a lot of talent coming from different parts of the world. And there is in our industry, because of the competitive nature of our industry, there is a war for talent. It's normal. You know, it's normal. You have somebody doing a great job in somewhere, and you have a problem in the same area. Well, you say, I can go much faster if I can get this talent in my company. But when you do this, from time to time you have to accept to lose some of this talent. Because the talent, once the job is done, or mostly done, is going to leave you for something else. It's part of the game. You know, it's part of the game. And we need to get used to this game. So, obviously, we always, when we lose a talent, we're not very happy about it, but at the same time, we understand it's part of the game. And I can tell you, we have, you know, people dedicated into searching for global talent all the time. So we have succession plans, and we have names, and we have people inside the company, outside the company. So, I mean, you can expect that this job is not going to stay unfilled for a long time.
I see many hands up, but we have only limited time, so please keep yourself short. Yeah. You. Next.
My name is Vajir from Bloomberg News. Can you give us an update on your collaboration with Tesla, BMW, and other car makers on unifying the charging systems and sharing your charging infrastructure? Thanks.
We consider that all the people who make electric cars are, I mean, obviously they are basically competitors, but frankly we don't consider them as competitors. The more people bring electric cars on the market, the more happy we are, because it gives much more substance to the strategy of developing zero emissions. So in different countries we work together, particularly region by region, to develop infrastructure. For example, in Japan, as you know, there is an initiative with all the Japanese car makers to develop infrastructure for electric cars. In Europe, it's at the level of the ACEA that I'm presiding, where we meet every 2 months with all the CEOs of the European car makers, and we are pushing towards common infrastructure and standardized infrastructure for electric cars. Tesla also, in the United States, we exchange together, and we are objectively together, even though we're competing, but we are from the same side. We want to promote zero emission cars. So I think the collaboration about infrastructure is going rather well, because we all agree on the fact that we should standardize as much as possible to facilitate the development of this area.
Just a quick follow-up first on Hassan's question. In terms of Tesla, they recently expressed that they want to share patents on electric cars. Do you have any specific moves that you're taking in order to move this forward? My second question is related to monozukuri and quality control. I understand that Nissan has been growing so rapidly, new plants, and they were also bringing certain production overseas, such as the Leaf. How are you taking measures to ensure that this rapid expansion won't cause any problems on quality?
Yeah. First, I think we have no intention to use existing patents, because we have a lot of patents on electric cars. I mean, we have been the first one to move into electric cars, so we have built a lot of patents. This may be helpful for other car makers. It's not our case. It's not a question that we won't use it. Frankly, if we needed it, we would use it, but we don't. Second is how you make sure that when you are expanding, you don't have quality problems. Well, for two things. First, every time there is a recall or a quality problem for any car manufacturer, we watch. We try to analyze what happened, why it happened, with other car manufacturers. And we try to look at ourselves by saying, is there anything we can learn from what's happening with another car manufacturer? By systematically reviewing your processes, by systematically reviewing your suppliers. Because most of the recalls that happened recently are mainly linked to the relationship with the supplier. The supplier coming with a part which was defective, but you don't know if it was defective because of the own supplier or because of the relationship between your own engineering and the supplier. So systematically reviewing your processes, analyzing all the quality problems, not only that you're having, but your competitors are having, is the best guarantee. Not that we're going to avoid it, but I don't think any car maker can say, I'm not having a recall or I'm not having a problem. But at least to minimize the problem, and particularly to put in place a system where when a problem happens, you take it immediately out of the lap of the consumer. That's absolutely fundamental. That's why you have so many reports now, because nobody wants to keep the problem in the lap of the consumer. Nobody is anymore taking any risk that, you're leaving the consumer with the problem. So we're moving very fast to say, no, if there is a problem, first, take it out of the consumer, number one, and second, solve the problem and try to make sure that the solution exists. But again, there is no 100% bulletproof approach, but it's a constant, I would say, process by which you systematically analyze what's going on. You know that we nominated in the executive committee of Nissan an executive vice president in charge of customer satisfaction and quality. He's a former engineer who was the head of the Chinese operation, so he's a high caliber potential, with full power in all the company to stop, modify process, make changes in the organization to make sure that we are not taking directly or indirectly, explicitly or implicitly, any risk on quality.
I see many hands up, but we have only 3 minutes left, so almost the last question goes to you, and then we have this short question maybe people ask.
Hi, I'm Yumiko Ono from the Wall Street Journal. You said you wanted to increase the number of women, percentage of women in management to 10% by 2017. Prime Minister Abe, his goal is 30% by 2020. Either Mr. Abe is very ambitious or you're very modest.
No, it's both. It's both. I think he's very ambitious and I'm very modest, yeah. No, but frankly, what I don't want is a burst of female in management with a lot of failure after. What you're moving is just make sure that you are advancing safely in a way where one step front is not followed by half a step behind. Because we want to give, one of the most important elements is give more confidence to our own employees that they can take any management responsibility. But for this, you need to show role models. You need to show successes. If people start to see massacres and failures, I think it's going to be counterproductive. So yes, I'm being conservative, I'm being prudent, because we are in a long-term perspective. We were less than 2% of managers. We are today 7%. I can tell you it's solid. The 7% are solid. We're aiming at a solid 10%. Can we move faster? Yes, we can move faster, but with risks that I don't want to take. I want it to be a constant, patient, systematic, robust, relentless, move. That's what I can tell you. Can you move faster? Yes, you can move faster, but you will be taking some risks that I don't want to take at the level of Nissan. I just want to make sure that this move is something that you cannot challenge. You cannot say, yeah, but it's artificial. No, because it's the trend of the day, it's the flavor of the day. No, it is something systematic that you need to build step by step and give more confidence to your own troops that this is reality. This is real. But I think the 30% is ambitious.
I know that there are many hands up and many questions left that we can't take right now, but I would like to ask the last question, and going back to your speech, actually. There are not so many questions about autonomous driving.
Yeah.
You were asked about the relationship with Google. But what about autonomous driving? More companies are moving into this direction. But where do you see that how is your strategy different from companies like, let's say, Toyota, Volkswagen, or BMW in this regard?
Yeah.
Please explain a little bit more.
No, first, frankly, we don't know what the others are doing. We don't know. We have rumors by the suppliers, because the suppliers are trying to sell their technology to all car makers. We are all moving into the same direction because we see the benefit in terms of safety and for the consumers, in terms of attractiveness. There is one statistic to show why everybody is moving towards autonomous driving. When you make surveys and you ask young people today, what's the most important thing for you? What's the most important thing for you? They tell you, we want more time available and we want more pleasant time. Okay? More time available and more pleasant time. Autonomous drive responds to both. People, in average, drive 2 hours in their car every day on the planet. During these 2 hours, they do nothing else than driving. By freeing part of these 2 hours, you're making time available. That's number one. That's goal number one. And second, by developing connectivity into the car, this time available is going to become pleasant. Why? Because you can listen to music, you can video conference, you can play, see a movie, finish your homework, do whatever during this time. So you are scoring big. This is a technology which is hitting the heart of what consumer, particularly young consumer, want. More time available, more pleasant time. That's why everybody's rushing. Now, you're going to see a different system. What we want is to be between the pioneers. Because you know there's always a premium for those who come first. Because you're associating the brand with something that at the end everybody's going to get. But it's important to get it first. So I think the battle is not so much to arrive the latest one with the best system. It's to come first and associate these advantages to your brand. Electric car, no matter what, will be associated with Nissan Renault because we were the first one to launch it. And a lot of people will be coming with it. Like hybrid is associated with Toyota because Toyota was the first one to launch it, even though a lot of people have hybrid. Well, the fight for autonomous is to be, you need to have the brand that comes first with very significant features that for the consumer say, wow, you know, I don't have to park my car anymore. I push a button, the car goes by itself. You know, some people talk about pleasure for driving pleasure. Yes, you're keeping the driving pleasure because you're sitting in the car. You can go manual whenever you want. But tell me, what is the driving pleasure when you are in a traffic jam? When you are in a highway, in a traffic jam, where you have to advance, you know, and drive. If you put it on automatic and can read your newspaper safely, go to video conference, advance, it's huge, the saver of time. So, big advantage, great advantage for the brand, and the premium here for those who are going to come with significant features first.
Okay, thank you very much. We are already a little bit over time. I'm very sorry that I can't take all the questions from the floor. But as it is custom in our club, of course, we have a 1 year honorary membership. So you can come back. Thank you very much. Of course, we expect you, maybe you don't wait 10 years this time. You renew the membership by another speech next year.